We're in Prescott, Arizona today, and the topics are interesting because they're different than my usual topics. And the ones that I think I'll go over are one, riding at elevation, joining a group ride that you've never done before with riders you've never ridden with before, doing climbs at elevation. How do you climb? Also, e-bikes. What are the role of e-bikes in the future with road bikes and group rides and such? So here's a little bit of footage as we're headed out on this group ride. And this is one thing I don't really like about this ride that I don't do in Texas so much. Look at this. Look at this vehicle as it passes me here, and tell me if you would feel particularly safe as this happens. So here we are. We're right next to this white line. There's a lot of gravel on the right-hand side. Oh, here's a truck going pretty fast. Oh, wow. Yeah, those tracks, the tracks on that backhoe came pretty close. Close enough that you're like, should I really be on this ride? So I'm not a big fan of this kind of riding. Highway riding on the shoulder, on the white line, etc. Just, but if that's what you got, that's what you got. If that's what you do, that's what you do. So for these folks out here, this is pretty normal riding, I think. I busted out my Garmin Varia radar I specifically bought for this trip because I've been out here before, and um, you'll notice that a couple of these guys, well, I don't know if everyone's in the video here, but a couple of these guys are running mirrors. Actually, I saw at least three mirrors, three people using mirrors. So two on the helmets or on the sunglasses, and one person with a mirror on their handlebars. As part of where you'd put the end cap, you have a mirror instead. So when you're out here and you're riding with a lot of cars, and maybe some of you viewers right now are living in places where this is the kind of riding you do. Anyway, for me, it's a little unsettling. I'd rather do the kinds of rides where we completely take the lane in a big group, kind of like all the videos I post of most of the group rides I do. We're in a big group and we're taking up the lane. And it's not really riding on a highway. So anyway, let's talk about elevation. So this area here is about a mile high from sea level. So in this range of 5,200 feet, when you go up a climb here, I think you might reach in the range of just like 6,500 feet, something like that. And if you want to get a good ride in, you can ride out of these mountains here and down into the valley towards Phoenix. And I'm not sure how low that goes. I want to say it might be 2,000 feet, so something like that. I'm a little bit sensitive to elevation, I think, compared to the average person. Someone online, a bike racer, said that in his experience, you do best at elevation the first day or maybe the first 2 days, and then you experience perhaps a setback after that. And um, then it gets better after that later. So I don't know really what to say. I guess as I'm getting older, I'm a little bit less sensitive to elevation than I used to be. People talk about hydrating well to combat elevation sickness, and also there are some medications that can be taken prior to leaving to deal with medication sickness. I'm not on any medication. So in this particular part of the video, I decided to throw on a little bit of our verb overlay through verb edit. And you may notice I'm not editing on my normal software here because it's a laptop and it doesn't have my normal software. Anyway, the guy right in front of me there in the red and orange, I don't know how old he is, but the guy in blue is 71. And I think he said his name was Jim. I'm not sure how old the guy in the red and orange was, but he looks older than Jim. No offense if you're watching this video, sir, but you look significantly older than Jim. I'm pretty sure you're older than Jim. So my point to this is this guy might be 75, 80 years old, and look at him motoring up this 4% climb. So I'm at high 200 watts here, and he's just trucking along. Now the trick to this is he's on a Trek e-bike. And I asked him after the ride how many watts his e-bike can run. He said 600 watts. He didn't tell me how long that is. I'm sure we could look up the specs of this Trek e-bike if we wanted to. But it's the one that looks a lot like a road bike, except it's got a thicker thicker down tube and seat tube and such that contains the battery, and it's got a much bigger bottom bracket where I suppose the motor is. And, gosh, if you can put out 600 watts anytime you need to, you can hang on to the group ride. Now, there are several riders that are way back, behind us that weren't able to keep this pace. This particular rider, even though he's definitely not the strongest one in the group, is able to completely keep pace with the strongest guy in the group in the blue shirt, in the blue jersey. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think that's the future. You're going to see a lot more people on e-bikes, especially among the older folks that want a little bit more push to be able to keep up on the parts that they might struggle with a little more. Now, it's not like on an e-bike you're going to just turn it on in the climbs, because the bike is significantly heavier than a regular bike. So you're probably going to be running a little bit of assist even on the flats. I don't know. I've never really tried an e-bike, but that's the impression I've gotten from reading about it. So, but certainly on these climbs, you can push up the climbs. Now, you hear a lot of hate about e-bikes. I don't have any hate for e-bikes. I don't have any. I don't begrudge an e-bike to this gentleman at all, or any other person that has an e-bike. If that's what it takes to get you out and have fun, good for you. I think that's great. Let's talk about climbing. So I'm not an expert climber. I live in the flat part of Texas. Most of Texas is relatively flat. And so I don't get an opportunity to practice long climbs. So a long climb in the Dallas area would be something like a minute or a minute and a half. Well, actually, we have some climbs down near Cedar Hill in the southern part of Dallas that are longer climbs than that, but I very, very rarely get down there. So it's pretty rare for us to even have a climb like this of 3%, 4%. That's several minutes potentially. And it's really not that hard. The way to practice this is to be able to constantly pedal against resistance. The way to practice this in Texas is to use a smart trainer, or I guess a dumb trainer as well. But the point is, you constantly pedal against resistance, and if you can pedal for 2 hours at whatever your percent FTP, let's say you could pedal 2 hours at 180 watts, then you can climb for 2 hours at 180 watts. It's that simple. Just hold the pace that's comfortable for you, that you want to do, and I think you're fine. Now, the part that can be a little more difficult for us flatlanders, I think, is the descending. I get much more uncomfortable about the descending. When I made my first trip, I guess it was to Colorado. Was it Colorado or Arizona? I can't remember. But anyway, yeah, actually it was Arizona here. My first climbing, I was a little bit worried about it, and so I got a derailleur. I got a derailleur that could accommodate a larger cassette with a compact crank. So I can't remember what my exact ratio was. I think it was something like a 34 and 30. And that is a pretty low speed. It's almost like you're walking up the mountain. But I was in a lot worse shape, less fit then. And I think I am stronger now. Well, I know I'm stronger now, but I don't think I would require that kind of setup for most of the climbing that's below 8%. There's a big difference between, 4% to 6% to 8%, and then anything above 8%. You can look at your Garmin. Your Garmin will tell you approximate percent grade that you are encountering on the ride. So this is just right now, 3 to 4%. It's not so bad. In fact, during this whole ride, during this whole group ride, I did not switch out of my my big ring. And I want to say my big ring is a 50, what is it? 55? 54? I can't remember. Anyway, it's actually, anyway, I don't even know what it is. But it's not a compact, put it that way. So, and I don't think I was ever geared out. So that's a little bit encouraging to me. But you can make sure that you have the proper gear ratios for going up at the pace that you are fit enough to go up and do it. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to just constantly pedal up a mountain. It's not a race, and I really enjoy it. And so here I am motoring behind these two fine men that are showing you know, if they can do it, I think you can do it too, e-bike or not. So the way this, it's kind of funny. You'd expect that going through all these highways that these guys would stay really close together and ride together. They don't. They just kind of do whatever they want, and then they meet up and regroup in certain spots. So even though we started off with, 7 people, we were constantly, or 8 people, we were constantly getting gapped and separated by quite a large distance. And one particular rider would start before everyone else because she said, you guys are going to catch me, so I'll get a head start. So there was not really a lot of thought about everyone staying together, I think partially because the fitness difference between the riders was so stark. And, that's just something different that I don't see a lot of in Texas. It seems like everyone pretty much stays together. Or if you can't stay together, you don't do that particular ride. But if you're in a small town like this, getting 10 people on a group ride is a big deal. That's like everyone in town got together to ride, that kind of thing. So having a ride of 20 people never happens. Anyway, I don't know how fun it would be to ride in a group of 20 people when everyone is riding single file, as they tend to do on this kind of ride. So traffic is fast. There was never any thought of everyone riding in a bunch and taking the lane. I guess it's just a different style of riding than what I'm used to. In fact, I'd much rather have the Dallas style of riding with the big groups taking the lane than I would this of riding single file. Anyway, we come to a halt here, and we're going to regroup and share a few words with each other as we're waiting here in Arizona. Temperature wasn't too bad. A little bit warm as the morning went on, but not bad. I think I went through a couple of bottles. Took a third bottle just in case, handicapped myself a little bit on the climb. So he's commenting here about how high my heart rate got, and I was telling him my heart rate generally doesn't go very high. So here's a little bit of footage of us headed down this hill. They call them hills. It's almost like mountains to me, but this would be a little bit of a hill. And the thing that I don't like about climbing mountains is going down the mountains. You would think, oh, it's a lot. If you haven't done it before, you would think, oh, it's a lot of fun, but you're going fast, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and there's a lot of traffic around you. And I really don't like being in the shoulder going fast downhill because of all the crap that's in the shoulder potentially. Loose gravel and everything else. You get these buildups of gravel, especially near intersections. So it's like plowing through a furrow of gravel. And that's why I got the Garmin Varia, so that when I'm going down the mountain, I will be able to know just by looking down whether there's someone behind me. And I do plan to take the lane when I'm going 45 miles an hour down a mountain. Also, I worry about brake issues and things like that. Of course, Armenian, if he's listening to this, is saying, see, I told you so, you should have gotten disc brakes. But we can argue about disc brakes versus rim brakes another time. Yeah. Thin air going up the mountain. Here's another thing I think is physiologically interesting, which is at elevation, my heart rate does not tend to go up as high as at sea level or my normal elevation. And for a long time I wondered about that, but then I saw some source related to that and got the answer, but I have to admit, sitting here, I've forgotten what the answer is to why it is in general that heart rates do not go up at elevation nearly as high. Gosh, I should look that up again. But for me, it's in the past it's been pretty stark. Like really hard to get above the 140s, even when I'm really suffering and legs are full of lactic acid. My physiology has changed just because of all the work I've done over the past couple of years. So I'm curious if that will be different this time when I put in a little bit harder effort going up a mountain pass. Um, so we're getting a little bit close to the end of our ride here, and getting off that more traveled road and passing a policeman here. And yeah, you can see these brown hills. It's a desert type landscape, although I'm told right now it's much greener than it normally is at this time of the year. It's not yet reached the monsoon season, but the monsoons of July and August will soon come and deliver afternoon showers and really green up the area as the desert blooms, so to speak, with the rain. And so it gets, apparently they get snow. I thought it was kind of interesting that the riders on this ride, I don't think any of them are on Strava. My ride did not sync up with anyone else's ride, and also interesting was that none of them, as we were sitting at the coffee shop afterwards, had heard of Zwift. It's not that they don't do Zwift, they'd never heard of Zwift. I thought that was kind of interesting, how different demographics and different areas may have completely different styles of riding and so forth. Just get out and ride. Don't worry about posting it up or keeping track of miles or what are my power numbers and what's what's my cycling coach telling me to do and what's my workout of the day and so forth. These roundabouts are kind of interesting. You kind of hope the cars yield and you don't get plowed over. And then we're going to be taking another turn up here and passing a scenic lake area, probably a reservoir that helps keep this area alive so people can flush their toilets and wash their hands and put water in their water bottles. And here we are turning into the final destination where we started the ride and headed over to the coffee shop. So that's this Prescott ride. I'm going to be posting up some